At the edge of a mountain cliff, a boy stood shaking, holding a broken sword. Below him was nothing but a sea of fog and the promise of death. Behind him stood an old man who offered only one sentence. He said, "If you step back, you live as you are. If you step forward, you become who you're meant to be." The boy closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and stepped forward into the abyss. 7 months earlier, Keon had walked for 3 days straight to reach this secluded workshop, tucked away in the mountains. He wasn't seeking food or shelter, he was looking for something more. He was there to become someone no one could ever ignore again. He found the old man quietly mending a tool, his hands moving with a lifetime of practice. Keon, filled with the fire of youth and impatience, didn't wait for an invitation. "They say, you're the greatest master alive," he declared. "Teach me." The old man continued his work, not even glancing up. His voice was calm, almost a whisper against the mountain breeze. "Why?" Keon's fists clenched. "Because I'm tired of being weak." Finally, the master stopped his work and looked up, his eyes holding a depth Keon couldn't fathom. "Then you're already tired of the wrong thing." Keon expected his training to begin immediately. He imagined grueling drills, secret techniques, and the clash of steel. Instead, the master handed him a broom. "Sweep," was all he said. Keon stared, bewildered. "Is this a joke?" The master's expression didn't change. "No, this is the test." And so it began. The days blurred into a routine of endless chores. Keon swept the dusty floors of the workshop. He cleaned every tool until it gleamed. He carried heavy buckets of water from the stream, his muscles aching. He scrubbed pots and pans, his hands raw. Days turned into weeks. There were no lessons on swordsmanship, no discussions of strategy, no whispered secrets of power. Only work, a silent, grinding, endless cycle of work that seemed to lead nowhere. One afternoon, the frustration boiled over. Keon threw the broom to the ground. "You're wasting my time," he yelled, his voice echoing in the quiet workshop. "I came here to become strong." The master, who was sharpening a blade, didn't flinch. He calmly set the blade down and turned to face the boy. "No," he said, his voice firm but not unkind. "You came to become important." Keon was stunned into silence for a moment. "What's the difference?" he demanded. The master's gaze was piercing. "Strength stays. Importance fades." Sometime later, the master approached Keon and handed him a simple clay bowl. It was old and had a thin, jagged crack running down one side. "Bring me water," the master instructed, without spilling. Keon looked at the bowl, then back at the master. "It's broken," he said, stating the obvious. The master simply nodded. "So are most people." Keon took the bowl and tried. The water leaked out, a steady trickle that emptied the bowl before he could take more than a few steps. He tried walking faster, then slower. He tried holding it at different angles. He failed every time. Frustration gave way to thought. He wasn't just failing to carry water, he was failing to solve the problem. He looked around the workshop, his eyes landing on a scrap of cloth and some leftover clay. Carefully, he patched the crack from the outside, using the wet clay as a sealant and the cloth to hold it in place. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. He returned to the master, the bowl now full. The old man nodded, a flicker of approval in his eyes. "Good. You didn't curse the problem, you solved it." The very next day, the real training began. The master handed Keon a wooden sword. Finally, Keon thought, this is it. He attacked with all his pent-up energy and frustration, and he was disarmed in seconds. He tried again, focusing, remembering every move he'd ever seen. He was defeated just as easily again and again. He ended up on his back, breathing hard, the wooden sword lying just out of reach. "Why?" he gasped, his chest heaving. "Why can't I beat you?" The master stood over him, not with pride, but with a teacher's patience. "Because you're fighting to win," he said softly. "Not fighting to learn." Weeks passed, filled with sparring, meditation, and more lessons that felt like riddles. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Keon finally asked the question that had been lingering in his mind. "Why do you even teach?" The master stared into the flames, his expression becoming distant and sad. "I once trained someone who wanted to be greater than everyone," he began, his voice quiet. "He was talented, ambitious, and impatient. He left too early, thinking he knew enough." There was a long pause. "The world corrected him." Keon leaned forward. "Did he die?" The master shook his head slowly. "Something worse. He lived, knowing what he could have been." Then came the final test. The master pointed towards the highest, most treacherous peak that loomed over their valley. "Climb the mountain tonight. Light this lantern at the top. Return before sunrise." It was a simple task, but a dangerous one. As if on cue, the sky darkened, and a storm rolled in. The climb was brutal. Wind whipped at Keon, trying to tear him from the rock. Rain turned the path to mud. He slipped, he fell. His hands bled. Every muscle in his body screamed in protest. But with every painful step, he remembered the master's words. He wasn't just fighting the mountain. He was learning from it. He wasn't just trying to win. He was trying to endure. Just as the first light of dawn broke the horizon, an exhausted, injured, and mud-caked Keon stumbled back to the workshop. He was smiling. He had done it. But the workshop was empty. The master was gone. On the workbench where the old man usually sat, there was only a single piece of paper. Keon picked it up. It read, "A teacher's purpose is not to be followed forever, but to be outgrown." Keon looked around the empty workshop, at the swept floors, the clean tools, the patched water bowl. He understood. He bowed deeply to the empty space, a gesture of profound respect and gratitude. Then, he turned and walked away. And that is the day Keon stopped looking for a master and became a student of life. True strength isn't proven by how high you climb, but by how long you keep going. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing for more.